What is it that your head coach does well? Because if you're telling me that what he does well is lead you in a crisis, I will tell you that you will need to show me better evidence than that. What does your offensive coordinator do well? What's his signature? And what is it that he's supposed to be implementing that hasn't been implemented? If these two guys had to go before Ryan Poles and Poles said, defend your job, how in the world would they do it? Other than bus tossing Ryan Poles for the roster that he has put in front of them.
What would you say you do here?
This is what I'm trying to figure out. And I stand by this. I don't know if Matt Eberflus is the problem, and I would suggest that he probably isn't the problem. But now I know he's not the solution. Same thing with your offensive coordinator. I'm really tired of over-promoted dudes. What did you call it? Proximity
privilege.
The proximity privilege of some of these dudes.
It was on full display yesterday at every single level, starting with your front office.
Aaron Rodgers was a full-grown MVP, multiple MVP, before Nathaniel Hackett and Luke Getsy walked in the door. I'm sure that he was grateful for any sort of film breakdown that those guys did for him, but you tell me what you've improved on. Same thing with the quarterback. You sat in front and said, you'll see, I'm going to play free this weekend. And we saw, and you played free and you played badly. There is a ton that should be put on the offensive coordinator and the head coach, and a ton should be put on the quarterback too. You're not getting better. You're still not seeing guys that are open. And are there reasons for that? Sure. You're fighting for your life because your offensive line has been in flux. All of that stuff. All I know is that yesterday I watched two quarterbacks with less experience, Kenny Pickett and Jordan Love, be better than Justin Fields. They have way less starts. In Jordan Love's case, it's like 25 less starts than Justin Fields. And they rally. Tell me a game that you have seen Justin Fields play that if the Bears were down 17, you would feel confident that he was going to rally them back. There isn't one. So the whole thing is a disaster. It's a disaster on every level. It's a disaster from the quarterback all the way up to ownership. Because while people were out here praising the hire of Kevin Warren, here's your first trial of what Kevin Warren is supposed to be doing to make the Bears not look like a clown show. And he failed miserably. Your general manager, King Poles, and all this other BS that people have been spouting about Ryan Poles. You show me the player that he is extended or brought in that's had a material effect on this team winning football games.
Show me the player he's developed. And, I said this on Twitter yesterday. This felt like the state champions scheduling a team that they knew they could probably beat for homecoming type of feel.
It really did have that feel.
But you know what? Even those teams will come out with something to bust you in the mouth, something to mix it up, like a flea flicker, some sort of hook and lateral or hook and ladder, whichever you call it in your part of the country, some sort of onside kick, a fake punt, something that they know they can do, something. And you know what? We don't have anything to hang our hats on there either. Perhaps the drive last week that culminated in the Chase Claypool touchdown against the Buccaneers. But we don't even have that to give us something to believe in.
You, on both sides of the ball, defensively is a struggle bus too. And that's supposed to be your head coach's calling card. He's supposed to be a defensive guy. But here's the problem. Your general manager didn't give the head coach what he needs for his defense to succeed. And what he did was pulled a great bamboozle, and he was out here telling you that the player that they needed was available, and they could have drafted him. But their whole thing was, well, we just didn't have the nest and the leadership that we needed to make it work. Then what's your coach for?
Well, also,
and what's your defensive coordinator for?
Also, here's my question, though. If your scheme is so fragile that it depends on one player in today's NFL, when one player doesn't stay healthy the entire season, that ain't it either.
Well, I'm not saying that it's the one player, but I am saying it is the position. I'm saying that, yes, you can run cover 2 as your base defense, but you can't run it if you don't have a 3 technique. And they don't have one.
Man, they've already kind of flexed off of that principle, though, even in drafting and playing Tyreek Stevenson.
But
like, they're already kind of changing it up to what they need it to be.
They can change it however they want. This is basic fundamental football that we're talking about. If you're going to run that defense, there has to be someone on the defensive line at that position that kicks ass and takes names. And they didn't go get him. And then what they did, they went and got a guy that played in a completely different defense. That was 2-gapping instead of 1-gapping, and now are asking him to be the focal point of their defense, to be the tip of the spear of their defense. They have allowed for, there's so much stuff that, like, when we go back and really look at what Ryan Poles has done, that has just been excused away. Not by me, but I was called a hater for it. Where, oh, we don't need Roquan Smith. We don't need a 25-year-old all-pro linebacker. He plays off the ball, Lawrence. You don't want to spend that type of money for him.
They haven't won since Roquan Smith was traded.
You're damn right they haven't.
Have not won.
There's a lot of stuff here, and a lot of people need to be held accountable for it. And if the Bears aren't going to do it, then we damn sure are going to do it here at the Score. Because quiet as it's kept, we don't have a deal with the Bears. And that's why what you'll get here on these airwaves are actual honest opinions about what's going on with that team. And I'm sad that Bears fans who I think came ready to play this season have to watch a Bears team that did not at every single level. Yesterday was an absolute failure. And this past week has been an organizational failure by the Bears. There's no one up there at Haugh that should be that should be holding their head up high. Not Kevin Warren, not Ryan Poles, not Matt Eberflus, not Luke Getsy, not Justin Fields. None of them. Because it doesn't seem like there's anyone who actually has solutions based in the football that they are playing right now. That the solutions are far off and usually are kick the can down the road. And the way that Poles will end up framing this failure will be to kick the can down the road to the next quarterback.
Don't forget, they thought that they were good. They thought that after all the time they had in the offseason and the opportunities they had to further play their starters in preseason, they were good. They were good.
And Texas says, I don't get the feeling that Jordan Love is going to fail because he's overwhelmed and doesn't know what he's seeing. Yeah. There is something to the idea of actually taking to sitting and watching. And the NFL world is split on that, by the way. But also, look at the coach. And the coach has not asked him to do too much.
He also, has the history there. The working relationship between him and a quarterback is well documented.
Yes.
There is a give and take there and a conflict that produced success, whether or not you like it.
All I know is that if you ask anyone at the Bears right now to defend the job that they have done for this year's team, they would not be able to offer you a defense that you would find believable. Not Justin Fields, not Luke Getsy, not Matt Eberflus, and not Ryan Poles. None of them would be able to offer you a defense of the job that they've done. Because to just kind of go back to this when it comes to Poles, 8 games was enough for them to make up their minds about Roquan. But don't you dare say anything about Chase Claypool in the 8 games that he played, because it's not enough time. Meanwhile, one of those guys had a real NFL resume and the other one didn't. Anyway.
Jason Goff said this, and I want him to expand on it when he gets in at noon. Bears fans deserve better.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see the headlines around the NFL late last night as I'm getting off work on Sports Sunday, and they're like, oh, the most shocking upsets or the worst games in the NFL, it's a picture of Russell Wilson or it's a picture of Dak Prescott because of the 70 points that Miami hung up or the upset that the Cowboys faced in Arizona. But it's not the Bears. And that's a big part of the problem to me. Is that outside of the NFL or outside of this city, everybody else has become complacent to this. Yes, they focus on Justin Fields, and it was a headline last week for sure.
It won't be a headline much longer.
But part of the reason it's been a headline is because of the success they saw in his athleticism last year. But the NFL develops a book on you, and we're already seeing it.
Layla, that's it right there. Of course, NFL defensive coordinators and head coaches are going to say, okay, this is something they do well. Let's take it away.
Right.
I've been sitting here waiting for the countermeasure from Luke Getsy, and you ain't got one.
Carmen Vitale studied that for years. Like, she's a great person to talk to about it today.
The whole point of coaching, what makes a coach great, is when they take something away, how do you respond to it? And we have not seen at least over the last 13 games. And then if you go back into what the Bears looked like before week 5, we have not seen Luke Getsy come up with an answer to the test.
Are you kidding? We're still bringing up 2018 like they actually won a playoff game.
Double doink.